All right, let's get you the big breaking news that's coming in on the mega semi-final between India and Australia. You've got Australia now all out and India's bowlers, as expected, striking, decimating the Australian batsmen. Now India will have to chase down 265 for a place in the final, for a place to play for the Champions Trophy glory on Sunday. 264 is what Australia has managed to get, having chosen to bat first. This is a total that they could perhaps be happy with, but considering India's strong batting lineup, it is going to be a challenge for the Australia, and we definitely hope so, considering, of course, that our bowlers did manage to strike after a few of, in fact, the Australian batsmen gave us a bit of a scare. First, it was Travis Head, and then you had Steve Smith, also top scoring for the Australian side. But overall, Australia being restricted to 264. Nikhil Naz is joining us live from Dubai. Nikhil, 264, 265 is the score that India needs to qualify now for the final. What did you make of the first innings?
Well, Akshita, very, very tough to call at this moment. Remember, when we were speaking before the game had started, I'd said that now that Australia won the toss, of course, India started with an advantage, but Australia winning the toss, batting first, it made it for a very close encounter, almost a 50-50 game, because of the fact that Australia had won the toss and had the advantage of batting first. But now, if you take a look at what they've put on board, it is such a total, it's very tough to call even now whether Australia are favourites or whether India are favourites. Had this been 280 plus, I would have clearly said Australia in the driver's seat. India will have to pull off a minor miracle to win. Had this been below 250, I would have said India in the driver's seat. It should be very easy for the Indian team to coast from here and register a win and qualify for the final. I think it's somewhere in the middle, 264. It's a tantalizing sort of a total, giving both teams a chance. Australia would be sitting in the dressing room and saying that, listen, this is a low-scoring ground. We have a chance. We put 264. India would be thinking, this is our chance. We can chase 264. And why is it that the Indian team would be confident? If you remember, they were chasing 240 or 20 runs less than this versus Pakistan. But they finished the job well in advance with overs to spare, which meant that on that occasion they had given you a glimpse that they, if the total had been 260, 270, they would have chased it down. So I think both teams will feel quietly confident. But if you put a gun to my head and actually ask me to pick a team to win, I'd have to give a marginal edge to the Indian team on two counts. One, as I said, what we have seen in the game so far, this is look like a slightly better pitch to bat on, closer to the pitch that we saw in that Pakistan encounter, if not better than that. So slightly better pitch to bat on. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you have an inexperienced Australian bowling lineup, and I think that is something that the Indian batters can make most of. Also remember, Indian batting has been firing overall in this tournament. Everyone from number 1, 2, 3 onwards till number 7, that is Hardik Pandya. Everyone has been in form, has gotten runs at some occasion or the other. So they go in with a lot of confidence, knowing fully well that somebody will step up. So it's again a very, very close game. But if you really had to ask me to pick a winner, which probably they have their noses ahead at best, and that will be the Indian team chasing 264, primarily because of how they came back. See, why I'm saying that Indian dressing room would be quietly confident, because at one stage when Steve Smith was batting and then Carey came on later and he was bludgeoning the Indian bowlers, it did seem like that 300 was possible, or if not 300, you were looking at 280, 290, and that's the partnership that was brewing there in the centre, and couple of batters really putting their hands up. From there, they've really got the Australian tail under control, picking up regular intervals towards the last 10 overs, the death overs, and restricting them to 264. So that's why I think they'll go slightly happier of the two teams in the I don't know whether to call it a tea break, lunch break, because it's early evening here in Dubai, but the mid break of this game, the Indian team slightly more confident than Australia.
Okay, so evenly poised at this point, with in fact a target of 265 for India to get in the next innings. All eyes will be on our star batsmen. As Nikhil says, at this point there's perhaps a slight edge for India, looking at how really our batsmen have been faring, looking at the pitch and the fact that Australia does have a weak bowling lineup. But having said that, Nikhil, you know, looking back at the first innings, do you think India perhaps should have restricted Australia to a lower score than 264?
That's a tricky question again, Akshita. To start with, yes, it did seem like that India had the stranglehold. I know Travis Head was hitting a few boundaries, but when you got him for 30 odd, I thought at that moment, and you got Varun Chakravarti to get that important Travis Head wicket, and this is what we had discussed. Travis Head is usually the most important cog in the wheel for the Australian team. As soon as he was out early on, they had lost those 2 wickets. You thought, okay, this isn't going to go at a par level at 260, 270. You weren't looking at that. But then, back of your head, you knew that there is a Steve Smith, and sure enough, we spoke about Steve Smith at length in our pre-show as well. He was the man who really stepped up on the occasion, ably supported there by Alex Carey. I think these two batters, then putting that partnership together, was taking Australia closer to. We were in the press box, and the media was talking. The game was changing continuously, I mean, ebbs and flows, and there was a point where we were discussing 300, and it looked like on target, because that's how good they were looking. The good thing with that middle over phase for Australia was not only were they consolidating, which other teams have tried to do, but what they have lost out while consolidating has been the net run rate. The net run rate continued to fall. We saw New Zealand guilty of that. We saw Pakistan guilty of that in the previous games that they played here. But Australia did not make that mistake. Clearly, they saw those games, picked up a few finer points, and they realized that you may have to consolidate in the middle overs, but you can't allow the run rate to really drop. And that's exactly what they did. Kept getting those boundaries in the middle. Not very adventurous, but kept getting the boundaries. So 300 was looking, almost a realistic target for Australia. From there, 264, no. I think this is the best the Indian team could have done under the circumstances. They'd be happy that it hasn't gone beyond their reach. It still remains a target which is within their reach. So overall, they'd be happy. If I had to really nitpick, I think to begin with, could have gotten Varun Chakravarti an over or two earlier, because Travis Head was attacking the Indian medium pacer, and then I think you went with Kuldeep Yadav as your first choice of spinner, first change, and that wasn't very prudent at the moment. So that was a minor glitch in the captaincy today. But overall, if you leave that aside, overall he was spot on in the rotation of the bowlers. Varun Chakravarti picking up 2 wickets. You had Mohammed Shami, the standout bowler for India. Again, his experience coming to the fore, and I take you to that point where he picks up the wicket of Steve Smith, bowled. I think that was a crucial point. If that wicket hadn't come at that time, probably we were talking about 290 or upwards of 290, 300, somewhere there is where Australia would have landed. But that wicket by Mohammed Shami proved to be very crucial. And from there on, while Alex Carey was very good, the rest of the batters failed to, give any sort of support. I mean, Glenn Maxwell's shot, I think that was baffling. He had hit a 6 before that. He has shown in these conditions during the IPL, as I'd mentioned, that he can get runs against spin bowling on slower pitch. But again, a baffling stroke there by Maxwell, which actually then put Australia on the back foot. They had to consolidate, and they've ended up. I think they'd also be happy, 260 odd. At toss, if you had asked Australia, would you take 260? They may have, maybe 270, 280 would have made them feel very comfortable, but under the circumstances, I think they'll take 260 as well.